Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
As of the end of June, we don't have a family doctor.
They're just like us. Doctors say they're facing the same challenges as BC struggles with the shortage of primary care physicians. And
ferries are our highway system here. We rely on them tremendously.
After months of canceled sailings and ongoing delays, BC Ferries CEO is out. Also, let the games begin. Your inside look at the BC Summer Games in Prince George.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Lien Yeung. Thanks for joining us. Here in BC, where an estimated 1 million people don't have a family doctor, the attrition continues. When family doctors retire, relocate, or move to other jobs in healthcare, it has a ripple effect. As Prairie reports, physicians say they are among the orphaned patients.
Is it okay if I take your blood pressure today?
Anna Chaudhra was a family doctor in BC for 15 years. At the end of June, she saw her last patients and closed the practice.
State of primary care here in BC made this decision much easier.
The move, she says, stems from the province's current staffing shortages and fee-for-service system.
It's just unsustainable to operate a small business here in BC.
In the fall, Chaudhra will join a family practice in New Zealand in a small town southeast of Auckland.
Right now, I have, like I mentioned, 2,100 patients. The group practice that I'm joining is for 3 doctors with option of expanding to 5 doctors. They have a rostered patient panel of 4,300 for these 3 doctors. So I just myself carry about half of that load.
Chaudhra's current patients are left to look for other physicians in the area who are already overloaded.
I have a couple of thousand patients and my waiting time is already a couple of weeks. And this is the hardest part, saying no to patients.
Since January, 30 family doctors have retired or relocated and closed practices in this Tri-Cities grouping of Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam and Port Moody. Fewer doctors means patients often end up in hospital emergency departments, and using those resources for primary care leaves dangerously scarce resources for unscheduled acute care.
If you end up sharing the resources of an emergency department to deliver primary care, that will leave less and less of those resources for delivery of acute unscheduled care. And that's dangerous.
For the doctors you just heard from, the impact of Anna Chaudhra's departure goes beyond their workload. She was their family physician, and now they're doctors without a doctor.
We're just part of the residents of this area, and we're in the same boat as a lot of my fellow citizens.
Meanwhile, Dr. Chaudhra, who's originally from Poland, says she never planned to leave BC.
It's a very difficult decision. Knowing that I'm leaving my patients without finding someone to replace me, leaving them on their own, is really difficult.
Prairie, CBC News, Port Coquitlam.
2 manhunts are underway tonight across the Lower Mainland in 2 unrelated incidents. Police are warning the public not to approach either man and to call 911 if either are spotted. Isabel Regem joins us now with more details. So, Isabel, tell us about the first suspect.
Leanne, we'll start with the search that began in Chilliwack, where 2 women were shot and killed. IHIT says it's looking for this suspect, 50-year-old Eric John Shestallo. He is considered armed and dangerous. Shestallo is described as white, 5'9", 176 pounds. RCMP say the attacks happened late yesterday morning in a Chilliwack home, and 1 woman was dead when they arrived. A second woman died a short time later in hospital, while a third victim, a man, was not as badly hurt and was treated by paramedics at the scene. RCMP say he likely knew the victims and the shooting was targeted. He was last seen driving a red 1990 Jeep YJ, which appears to have a yellow front end and may have BC license plate MT981W. Now, Leanne, to the second manhunt in a separate case, this one launched by RCMP in Coquitlam, where they say an inmate convicted of first-degree murder escaped from the North Fraser Pretrial Center. Police say 35-year-old Rabi Al-Kahalil was last seen wearing a black jumpsuit and a high-visibility vest. He left in a white van with 2 other people who were posing or employed as contractors there. They left just before 7 p.m. yesterday. Al-Kahil is described as Middle Eastern man, short black hair and brown eyes, 5'10" and 166 pounds. He and 2 other men are charged with a 2012 shooting death of a 36-year-old man. And Mounties have released this image showing the 2 men suspected of helping him escape. Now, Lien, this is not the first escape at the pretrial center. 2 prisoners walked out the front door by posing as different people within a few months of each other, one in November 2007 and the second in August 2008. One of the 2 was never recaptured. So we asked BC's Public Safety Minister, Mike Farnworth, whether there would be an investigation into what happened here. We have not received a response on that. But his office said in a statement, in part, we understand that these are very concerning situations and the situations are active and ongoing. But Lien, I think many British Columbians will be asking how someone accused of murder was able to escape police custody.
Absolutely, Isabel. Those are the questions we're indeed asking tonight. Quite remarkable. Thanks, Isabel Regan, reporting live for us. Former Canuck Jake Virtanen was back on the stand today for the final day of testimony in his sexual assault trial in BC Supreme Court in Vancouver. As Karen Larson reports, the 25-year-old was once again emotional.
For a second straight day, the former Vancouver Canuck broke down in the witness box, describing how the sexual assault allegation has affected his hockey career. Virtanen said he was speechless when the Canucks placed him on leave in May of 2021 and sobbed when telling the court that he ended up playing in Russia last season because it was the only place that would give him a job. Virtanen is facing 1 count of sexual assault related to an incident in his hotel room at the Westin Bayshore in 2017. He maintains the accuser was an active and enthusiastic participant in the encounter. She previously testified she told him no and fended off advances multiple times. In cross-examination, Crown suggested Virtanen assume the woman wanted sex, which he denied. The trial reconvenes Monday for final submissions before the 8-man, 4-woman jury begin deliberations. Karen Larson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meanwhile, Hockey Canada faces another firestorm tonight over another deeply disturbing claim. It once again involves members of the World Juniors team, alleged to have taken part in a group sexual assault in 2003. That police are now investigating. As Lindsay Duncombe reports, it comes after months of widespread condemnation against the organization.
At Canada's shrine to hockey heroes, disgust.
It's just brutal. You just kind of look down on that and makes you just kind of hate them in a sense, right?
The latest allegations go back to the 2003 World Juniors in Halifax, what Hockey Canada describes as an alleged group sexual assault. In a statement, Hockey Canada said it learned of the specific allegations Thursday night from TSN reporter Rick Westhead, calling the explicit details deeply disturbing. TSN is reporting the victim was an unresponsive woman and that the incident was videotaped. CBC has not independently verified those details. Hockey Canada informed Halifax police. The force confirms it is investigating. This just days after London police reopened its investigation into an alleged incident in 2018. A woman recently settled a lawsuit after alleging junior team members forced her to have sex with them for hours without consent. Laura Robinson wrote a book about sexual assault in junior hockey decades ago.
It's very violent, it's very degrading, it's humiliating, and it's in a group, and almost always it's videotaped.
Former NHLer Dan Carcillo was playing junior hockey in the OHL in 2003. He says group sex with consent was common.
It's pretty normalized. It was new to me when I got there when I was 17.
Carcillo was part of a class action lawsuit alleging abuse while he played junior hockey.
People are going to have to endure a lot of information that is going to continue to make them uncomfortable about what happens and what isn't spoken about as it relates to abuse hazing, rookie initiations, and women.
That was a report from Lindsay Duncombe. In just 2 days, Pope Francis will touch down in Canada for a trip he says will advance reconciliation. His tour comes after a year of growing reflection and outrage over the Catholic Church's involvement in Canada's residential schools. But as John Hernandez reports, some who have endured intergenerational trauma from the school system says apologies only go so far.
Pope Francis has called it a pilgrimage of penance, a cross-Canada tour to strengthen ties with local Indigenous communities and make amends for a troubled past.
I think there's so many things that have to be fixed or repaired.
Sycoos First Nation member Deborah Page says much of her extended family lived through Canada's residential school system. Her nation's language was also nearly wiped out.
My family really suffered. We've lost, all of my aunties died before they were 50. One died at 29.
Across Canada, growing outrage over the Catholic Church's involvement in the residential school system as more and more unmarked graves of children are uncovered. For survivors and their descendants like Page, apologies by the Pope on behalf of members who abused children fails to acknowledge the Church's role as a whole.
I mean, it's easy to say apology, but if it has no substance behind it, then what does it really mean?
I mean, first of all, it's such a short visit.
This Indigenous reverend fears the 5-day tour, which doesn't include a stop in BC, might not leave enough time for healing.
I'm worried that it's too focused on the celebration of the Mass and not focused enough on listening and truly deepening the relationship with the survivors who are calling for that.
While caretakers at this ongoing vigil for the children who died at the Kamloops Indian Residential School say words can only go so far, but hope it can lead to change down the road.
I think still we can demand better, and we need to ask for change, and we need to see that change, and we need to have that benchmarked and have some transparency of what that looks like.
My prayer for him and for the Roman Catholic Church is that this trip is transformational for him. And so he leaves here a changed person and willing to revisit the dynamics and the unfinished business that remain between the Roman Catholic Church and Indigenous Canadians.
Unfinished business that some say means a full-throated apology, the release of documents, and reparations. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC Ferries has fired its CEO. This comes during heightened pandemic staffing challenges, service delays, and sailing cancellations. As Benit Brach reports, some hope this leads to smoother sailing ahead.
Foot passengers, please have your boarding passes ready for collection.
It's a reset for BC Ferries. CEO Mark Collins has been fired. He was hired in 2017 with a commitment to the customer experience and earning $500,000 a year. 5 years later, he's out the door. In a statement, BC Ferries says it wants fresh ideas and renewal. The change comes amid high rates of absenteeism and frequent sailing cancellations.
This is our highway. We don't have a choice. We need this highway.
This medical office assistant says island residents worry about missing crucial appointments.
People who are literally in tears who have said, is there any way that you can find out whether this specialist can come to the coast?
Many residents and travelers say they want more certainty.
The ferries are our highway system here. We rely on them tremendously economically.
He says the outgoing CEO did a good job engaging with Pender Island, but ongoing cancellations have left many disconnected. The leadership shakeup is also drawing attention for the political affiliation of the new chair of the BC Ferry Services, the independent company running the fleet with support of a government subsidy. And it's been less than a month since former NDP cabinet minister Joy McPhail was appointed to the role. And the BC Liberals are critical of the connection.
The last time that the NDP started directly interfering with BC Ferries, we ended up with the Fast Ferries fiasco. Over $500 million wasted. And I think it's just the start of what you're going to see, which is continued NDP government interference with the BC Ferry Corporation.
BC's transport minister deferred the CBC to BC Ferries, citing it operates independently from government. For now, a new interim CEO has stepped in, and Mark Collins will be getting a severance payout, but just how much is not yet known. Benit Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
Our municipal affairs reporter, Justin McElroy, has been following key mayoral races in the province ahead of the October elections. Today, he breaks down the mayoral race in White Rock, or lack thereof.
If you live outside White Rock, you might just think about the pier and the beach when it comes to this municipality, but voters here, it's the same question as anywhere else: housing and development. Now, 4 years ago, Darrell Walker became mayor of White Rock, winning on an anti-development platform, saying to slow down the growth, to slow down the pace and the height of towers, specifically down Johnston Street here. And they did have some success. This fish and chip shop is part of a small development that was going to become a 12-story condo. The council reversed the decision by the previous one once Walker was elected, and they even fought a winning Supreme Court battle to limit the size of future growth here to just 6 towers. Now Walker is saying that he will run for re-election, but he's saying that now he wants a little bit more housing than maybe he did 4 years ago, and says that there's a split on council that doesn't allow some of that to happen.
Give me, if you want me as your mayor, a progressive council so that we can build some of these developments. The developers are out there and want to do it. They're not all after 12, 15, 25 stories. They understand the rules as well, but we have to work with them so they have their needs seen to, and we also have the needs of the community seen to. And that's the balance that I'm going to be talking about and looking for in a second term.
Now, the political party that Walker ran with last time is being dissolved, the members going their separate ways because of those disagreements, and it's unknown whether anyone significant will run against Walker this time around. He may win big, but it's a reminder that the only thing constant in local government is change one way or the other. Justin McElroy, CBC News, White Rock.
A street in Surrey is being named after Sikh Guru Nanak Dev. The new street sign was unveiled this afternoon. Lovely to hear the drums there. 175A Street on the 6400 block of Cloverdale is being renamed to Guru Nanak Way. Guru Nanak Dev was the founder of the Sikh faith and known for his message of universal peace and equality.
It was a dream come true for not only the Pix family, but also the whole community.
The street name will provide access to Guru Nanak Diversity Village, a long-term care facility. The 125-bed facility aims at providing culturally sensitive long-term care to seniors with South Asian backgrounds. Well, an orca is being celebrated this week to mark the 20th anniversary of her rescue and return to her pod.
She's usually out there rolling around onto her back and flipping her flippers up in the air.
Springer was 2 years old and an orphan when she was found in Puget Sound after losing her mother. Experts nursed her back to health and then reunited her with her pod in the first known case of a killer whale being successfully rehabilitated.
Very special, and it was certainly something that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Springer now has 2 calves and spends most of her summers in BC's Johnston Strait. And meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now. Joe, that's a nice story, hey?
I know. I was thinking, does that make Springer a young millennial or a Gen Zer at 22? Yeah.
I got to do the math on that one.
Yeah. But anyway, it's amazing to see the old footage and to know that she's now a mom of 2.
Yeah.
I've got a great forecast for humans and orcas alike to start the weekend. But of course, we do have to talk about the turning up of the heat that'll really kick in for Sunday. Let me start you with the fire danger rating, because of course this is really what we're watching, especially for the interior. Every day we've seen those oranges and yellows take over. Now starting to see some extreme pockets in the Kootenays and the southern interior up towards the Caribou region. Definitely something we'll watch for in the week ahead, because it is going to be a long week ahead for this heat that is just continually building. Here's that outlook. Keep your eye on those red temperatures. Those are the 30+ temperatures that are in place across most of the U.S. right now. Really starting to punch up into BC through Sunday and Monday. Watch this. On Tuesday, we'll start to get into the peak of the heat. That's when we're talking mid-30s for the interior, 30s for the south coast. And this looks to stick around through most of next week. I don't see a definitive end once we turn the thermometer up. So, Lien, I'll really break it down for you and talk about temperatures, but we get one more reasonable day before Sunday gets hot.
All right, thanks, Joe. And just so you know, control room lets me know in my ear, they've done the math. Springer is officially a Gen Z, so.
Oh, we got to get her on TikTok.
There we go. Reels will be so popular. All right.
I know. I'll see you in a bit.
The BC Summer Games are underway in Prince George. 3,000 teen athletes from across the province are converging in the northern city to compete in 27 sports over the next 4 days. Our Nadia Mansour brings us this story as competitors were calming their nerves and brushing up before the races heat up.
This is my horse, Beezy.
14-year-old Brooke Foray traveled from Virtanen to compete, bringing all her equipment and everything Breezy needs too.
My favorite part about this entire sport is probably just making the bond with the horse. I'm feeling slightly nervous, but at the same time, I need to keep my nerves under control.
Prince George athletes are competing with a hometown advantage.
Hand hard on the mat, looking into the throw. Make sense? 3, 2, 1. We're preparing for the BC Summer Games this weekend.
On the wrestling mat, Coach Dennis McCarthy remembers what it was like for him and what athletes have to look forward to.
I competed at the BC Games in Victoria, I think it was 1988. I still have memories of that trip. Friends that I wrestled with, still friends with.
Now it's time for these wrestlers to get their A game on.
I'm pretty excited, just cool opportunity. I'm nervous. I'm pretty new to it.
I like the sport because my dad does it. My dad's the coach, and I like coaching the little guys too. It's not an easy sport. I don't think anybody else wants to do it. Confidence, motivation, discipline, hard work, effort.
Work hard. Don't quit. You'll get there eventually.
The BC Summer Games dates back to 1978, running every 2 years since then. But the pandemic has changed that, and athletes have not competed since 2018.
A number of the athletes that would have competed that year have already aged out.
The timing is right for these paddlers as they prepare to compete on West Lake, still working out a few key details before race day.
I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm honestly super excited.
I'm excited and nervous because there's going to be a lot of people.
One of the challenges of the race is when you've got a kid from every zone trying to line up and hold themselves in position. So that's what we're going to practice right now.
Over the next few days, stadiums and venues across Prince George will be filled with the sights and sounds of competition from BC's very best young athletes. Nadia Mansour, CBC News, Prince George.
The Pope arrives in Canada this weekend. Amid expectations, he will apologize for the abuse suffered at Catholic-run residential schools. What that could mean for some survivors and their loved ones. Stay with us. And thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream. It's summer camp season in Alberta, and one spot in the Edmonton area is focusing on connecting young Cree women to their language and culture. The program is now in its 12th year, and CBC's Travis McEwen went to find out what keeps it going.
Through TikToks and dance classes, it's no surprise that young teen women love to learn to dance. But this hoop dance instruction hits differently for this group, as many of them are First Nations or Métis, and the majority of the lesson is in Cree.
I remember growing up, I've always looked at hoop dancers, and I was always mesmerized how they could do such cool things like that.
Ivy Brandsma is a jigger, but this was a whole different experience for the 12-year-old.
I was really surprised that I could be an eagle with the hoops. It's such an amazing opportunity to learn.
The Cree language is taught here at the University of Alberta, and in this summer camp, it operates like a bilingual program with students speaking in English and Cree as well. And for many of them, they have a bit of a basic knowledge when they enroll.
These girls are the most vulnerable, really, in urban today, current world. And we're trying to provide them ways to be strong, feel good about themselves, know who they are, know where they're from.
When they come to this program, we give them the foundation, and from there they build. So they're going to be very powerful young Indigenous women leaders.
They're learning other cultural activities as well this week, but it's also been a great opportunity for them to connect with other Cree teens.
As an Indigenous person, we have to embrace our culture, and as a younger generation, we want to pass it on as we get older also.
I never really went to anything like these, so I was actually really happy when I heard of it. And I'm happy that I met everyone so far, and that this camp is just amazing to everyone.
They'll continue to learn this week on a campus they plan to return to, either through the camp or university classes. Travis McEwen, CBC News, Edmonton.
Pope Francis arrives in Canada on Sunday, and survivors hope he will apologize for his church's role in abuses suffered at residential schools. First Nations, Métis, and Inuit leaders explained what the visit and apology could mean for reconciliation.
In order for the healing to start, we need to receive the apology.
A lot of the survivors also tell me they're angry still, and they don't believe an apology would do anything. We need Canada to fully implement the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action.
Action number 58 is a call for the Pope to go to Canada and to issue an apology.
My father and I were both abused by a priest, sexually abused by a priest. And the impact, that's how we relate with our own children and within our own family and community. We need to ensure that proper parenting programs are in place, proper healing process are in place. I strongly believe that it will meet this call to action, number 58.
We still need swift support for the First Nations conducting those investigations into the former residential schools, along with the apology and the records, and all of our items and our artifacts should be returned. They took away our important spiritual items and artifacts and things that were part of our culture and our language and who we are as a people.
I personally believe that the apology is a step in the right direction.
We need those healing centers. We need those programs and resources.
For more on what to expect during the papal trip and whether this visit will bring some closure for survivors of residential schools, I'm joined by CBC's Indigenous Affairs reporter, Wamish Hamilton. Wamish is Nuu-chah-nulth, and he's covering the papal visit. And a note that this discussion will involve residential schools and may be triggering for some viewers. So, Wamish, how much anticipation is there that the Pope will make another perhaps more detailed and meaningful apology from what we've previously heard?
I'd say that there is high anticipation and high expectation and hope. Having said this, it really depends on what is meant by more meaningful and more detailed. One thing for certain, people will be listening for if the Pope makes an apology for the Church as a whole for their actions during the residential school era, or still continuing to apologize for just the actions of a few.
Yeah, that's certainly something that people have been critical of. And you're traveling up to Iqaluit as part of your coverage. What do you think the Pope's apology will mean to people there?
It's going to mean different things to different people. For some, it is a significant step in their personal healing journeys as residential school survivors or intergenerational survivors of the residential school experience. Still, there are others that it's not going to mean anything to. It just doesn't hold any meaning for them. But how exactly this plays out is going to depend on what the Pope says, and we'll have to wait to see for that.
And is there anything that strikes you or that is unique about the fact that he's actually going to Iqaluit as part of his papal visit?
It's unique in the sense that Iqaluit isn't Edmonton or it isn't Quebec. It is a small, remote location, but it highlights the fact that residential schools were also located in such locations.
And so when the Pope arrives on Sunday and goes through his week, what are you going to be looking for?
Strange as it may sound, I'm not going to be looking for the Pope or hanging on his every word. Instead, what I do want to do is listen to the stories and the thoughts and the feelings of the people in Iqaluit who are left to live there after the Pope leaves and goes back to Rome. He gets to leave. These people have to stay and live with and make sense of what he said and what he's done.
Well, Wamish, we look forward to the stories that you'll be bringing us in the coming weeks. That's Wamish Hamilton, our Indigenous Affairs reporter. Thanks, Wamish.
Thank you.
Talking about these stories can be upsetting. If you or someone you know is looking for support, you can reach the National Residential School Crisis Line at 1-866-925-4419. It is available 24 hours a day. Trouble at the border for travelers as some Canadians returning home are wrongly told to quarantine. The reason why, coming up.
The Symphony of Fire event in past years has been a runaway success. More than 200,000 people regularly show up each night to watch. Last year, some West End merchants claimed they were shut off from the beach because the city signed an exclusive contract with one company.
We want the city at least to play fair.
Don West, who runs a number of popcorn stands, says the same thing is happening this year.
The city will not allow the local merchants to go onto the beach or onto the city sidewalks at the beach to be competitive with the people who take it over.
City engineer Brent McGregor admits that one company called Servomatic has the contract. He says other vendors can apply to work on the beach through Servomatic.
If the vendor that's there now wishes to go to the organizer and get approval to vend under the market license, he's quite able to do that.
I think it would be good for the city to consider allowing an expansion of the vendors that they permit on the sidewalk during these events. But it's up to them to make that decision.
Other merchants here are also concerned.
On the regular hot dogs, it's going to cost me quite a bit because people will just get regular hot dogs off the beach instead of coming to me. If they want a gourmet hot dog, they'll come to Snarley's.
You know, we'll be here all year round. We wait once a year for the special event, you know, the fireworks. And then all of a sudden, the big stars come down, they take the cream of the pie, and say goodbye.
Chris Chatton, a restaurateur, disagrees.
But there are 200,000 people in the area, and I don't think that 3 or 4 popcorn stands are going to be able to look after that many people. And from a restaurant point of view, our business quadruples.
Ray Greenwood, the man who runs Servomatic, says any of the merchants here can participate.
I do pay a fee to the Vancouver Parks Board for being there, percentage of the commission earned. I do pay them a fee on the sales, and they're more than welcome to. All they need to do is apply. These merchants, none of them have ever phoned our office at 688-1992 to apply for it. None of them.
The furor over vending on the beach probably won't go away until the Symphony of Fire is over, or until days like this when the weather's bad, and there's no one here to buy popcorn or soft drinks on the beach. Bob Gillingham, CBC News at English Bay.
It's been more of an ordeal lately for Canadians looking to travel. Making it worse, some Canadian travelers arriving home were told to quarantine for no reason. But as Sophia Harris reports, Ottawa tells CBC it was due to a glitch in the ArriveCAN app.
So this is what I do when I'm in quarantine. I do crosswords.
John Suk has had a lot of extra time recently because he's been in quarantine without knowing why. Suk, who lives in St. Catharines, returned to Canada last week from a trip to Europe. He filled out the mandatory ArriveCAN entry app for travelers and is fully vaccinated, which means he doesn't have to quarantine. But then, Suk got several strange emails and a robocall instructing him to isolate for 14 days. So he reluctantly complied.
This robocall was full of threatening messages like prison time, so I figured I'm not going to risk this.
But it turns out there's no risk. The federal government told CBC News that due to a technical glitch with the ArriveCAN app, a small number of travelers received an erroneous notification instructing people to quarantine.
You know what the government should do with that app? Throw it in the garbage.
ArriveCAN is a user-friendly digital tool.
Travelers entering Canada must use ArriveCAN to input their travel and vaccination information or face a 14-day quarantine, even a fine. But some politicians and tourism groups say it's time to scrap mandatory use of the app.
Anything that is complicating the travel process, the travel journey right now, is having a negative impact on the return of people traveling again.
The Public Health Agency of Canada says ArriveCAN is a necessary tool that helps keep Canadians safe and improves processing times at the border. But the union representing customs officers says the app can actually create congestion.
What we're experiencing is about 35% approximately of travelers are arriving without having completed the app. We end up having to help them do it.
You're not required to quarantine.
But at least there's good news for Suk. He just got an updated email from the government informing him it had made an inaccurate request to quarantine.
Now I'm free.
Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
Elsewhere in Russia and Ukraine, they've signed a deal to allow grain to flow from a number of Black Sea ports. It could prevent famine in parts of the world and bring down the cost of food. Briar Stewart reports.
With war surrounding these fields in eastern Ukraine, the harvest is perilous. It's necessary to save the harvest even if it gets stuck in the ports, this farmer said. Most of Ukraine's grain has been stranded for months because of a Russian blockade. There's a backlog of 25 million tons. But today, some good news. After weeks of negotiations, a landmark agreement.
It will bring relief for developing countries on the edge of bankruptcy and the most vulnerable people on the edge of famine.
Ukraine is one of the world's largest exporters of grain, and the war has exacerbated a global food crisis, particularly in Africa. The deal was brokered by the UN and Turkey. Turkey's president said he hoped this could be a turning point towards peace, but Ukraine and Russia didn't go that far. Ministers from both countries signed the agreement separately, and they didn't sit together at the table. This sign showing the Ukraine and Russian flag right next to each other was hurriedly replaced by another, which had the UN flag between the two. Ukraine has accused Russia of stealing its grain and selling it. NATO allies, including Canada, say they'll be watching Russia closely.
Russia is responsible for this global food crisis because of the wrong-headed decision they took to invade a peaceful neighbor.
It's expected to take several days before export can resume.
It will be very tenuous, I think, in the near term.
This food economist says the war has left infrastructure stretched. Insurance companies have also voiced concern about insuring vessels in the area. All of it amounts to plenty of challenges.
The problem is it's going to take a while. And I think that it's unclear if they can get back to the 5 to 6 million ton a month volume.
But it is a positive step, one that will bring more money to Ukraine's farmers and help move grain to countries that desperately need it. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Toronto.
What's the freshest cup of coffee you've ever been served? Because one Vancouver shop has the good stuff from beans they grew themselves right on site. We'll take you there. That's next. And it is 6:38 p.m. and a gorgeous, gorgeous night overlooking English Bay there, heading towards Point Atkinson. Johanna will be back with your full forecast, all about those weekend temperatures, and if we're going to see more of this gorgeous view. Stay with us.
In British Columbia, it was supposed to be an intimate family reunion, but the world was watching, holding its breath, as an orphaned orca was finally reunited with her pod. Here's the CBC's Alan Waterman on Springer's homecoming.
All day she knew that beyond that net, her family was out there. And it was. She heard it. Just 2 kilometers away, the pod known as A11, led by Springer's great aunt.
The fact that her family's around, the pod's around, that's very encouraging. It's really what we were really hoping for, and the fact that they just came in a few days ago, I think we're just lucky.
The pod knew that Springer was nearby. They could hear her too, and so could scientists listening in with underwater microphones.
We could hear clear as a bell the sounds of the whales outside and her calling back. Her calls were so loud they practically blew our headphones off.
Those conversations with family, the first after almost a year of separation, were cause for excitement.
You know, this is not very scientific, but I think she knows she's home.
But reintroducing her to the hometown crowd was hampered by overly curious boaters. Several times during the day, they held up the reunion and caused the pod to turn back.
Better run the Coast Guard out ahead of time because there are boats all around them.
I'll keep everybody outside the bladders again and further away from you.
Then preparations for release shifted into high gear. Springer was fitted with radio transmitters so researchers could track her movements. And then they waited.
Got it, drop the net, open it up. It's being done now.
Sunday afternoon, it happened. A month and a day after researchers first stepped in to help, she was free.
Got her over? Yeah, I'm gonna push under. No, go ahead. You're off. We're off. Yes. Sweet go.
She dashed straight to her pod, 200 meters offshore. The underwater calls from both sides, loud enough to be heard by people on the surface.
Still that under, must guys. Feel good, eh?
Well, let's
How see. Long's that been?
It's been a month and a day.
The net's open, she's out, and she hasn't come up yet. It looks like she's heading straight out.
Yeah.
It's one of those moments just where see her heading out. I mean, it was very special, and it was certainly something that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Minutes after her release, Springer was seen headed down the strait, although on a slightly different course than her pod. But researchers aren't concerned. They say the whales are in the area for many weeks to come, and they're confident Springer is on her way. Alan Waterman, CBC News, Telegraph Cove, British Columbia.
All right, Joe, you're a big coffee fan, are you?
3 a day, at least, Leanne.
Oh,
yeah.
my. Okay. All right. You definitely like your
Yeah.
coffee. Okay. I'm mostly a tea drinker, but
I know.
you know, a lot of Vancouver coffee shops, they like to claim they have the freshest brew of coffee, but there's an East Side cafe that may have beat them all. I don't know if you've tried it yet. So this week, they finally got a taste of a brew from coffee berries grown and harvested from a plant in the corner of the shop. Our Gianpaolo Mendoza spills the beans on this story.
There we go. That's roast coffee, all right. There you go.
Every day, thousands of Vancouverites drink coffee brewed from beans imported from all over the world. But there are virtually no coffee beans grown in Canada due to its climate, and even fewer beans that make it into a fresh cup of coffee until now.
I'm Wayne Bertrand, co-owner of Laughing Bean Coffee.
and we are at JJ Bean roasting some coffee beans that I grew in my coffee shop. That plant was given to us pretty much when we opened by one of our customers about 19 years ago. I decided I should take care of it, so I transplanted it in a bigger pot and put some better soil in there and started to water it. I didn't start out just trying to grow coffee, I was just trying to get healthy plants. And all of a sudden, boom, 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 they popped out and they started turning red. Found out some different ways of processing, so I did the honey process. I basically just squished them out of the cherries out, put them on a plate and let them dry over warm and stuff like that, and kept collecting till I had about a pound over. We were supposed to roast a couple years ago, but then the pandemic came along, so now finally we got the pound. Now we're roasting them at JJB on Commercial Drive here. I got a feeling of anticipation. I want to see what it looks like. Eventually what it tastes like.
We've never tasted coffee that was grown in Canada before.
Because we've had supply issues in the past.
It's one of a kind for us. This is kind of the international standard for how coffee is evaluated. We're just going to pour the water on the coffee and steep it for a while, and then we'll slurp it.
Tastes like coffee my dad used to make.
John Paulo Mendoza, CBC News, Vancouver.
Wow, that's pretty cool. It took them a long
I
time.
am intrigued. Yeah, Leanne, okay, I have to tell you, Laughing Bean is one of my favorite coffee shops, and I had no idea.
You're going to have to go look for you're going to have to go look for the plant in the corner now.
Going to have to. Yeah, that might be my weekend plan, to have my cinnamon bun with the dog out front of the giant rock. Thank you, GP. I needed to know this.
Make sure Wesley doesn't go and pluck the berries.
Thank you. That will also be key. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us more about the weather. It has been feeling pretty fresh, I hear.
Yes, it was a fresh start. I don't know if alarming would be the right word, or relieved when people woke up this morning, Leanne, to cloud cover and cooler temperatures. Take a look at where we're at right now. A complete reversal from this morning. Wasn't the temperatures were actually that much lower this morning with that marine cloud, but it is amazing how different it feels here in Vancouver with a different air mass. That was a marine air mass that snuck in overnight. The cloud cover already moved out, and we're feeling that heat. 21 in through YVR, 22 out towards Abbotsford. So a very seasonal today. Wanted to set the satellite and radar back about 12 hours. So you could see that lower cloud hanging on through the morning hours. We're seeing some cirrus sneak down across the island tonight, but definitely a very sunny and hot forecast ahead. Okay, we've been talking about that warm up that begins Sunday for some time now. Here's Saturday's forecast. Now look at Sunday. That's when we start to see temperatures jump up to the mid to high 20s for the south coast and the mid to high 30s for the interior. Might be looking at a little bit of a drop by a degree or two for Monday, and then it builds right back in Tuesday onward. So I imagine we'll see heat warnings issued this weekend through next week, and this heat wave just keeps on going basically from Tuesday to Friday, and I don't see a big end in sight. The other thing we will be watching this weekend, watch as I take you through the weekend. Saturday, a few green blobs showing up. Those are isolated showers that may be associated with thunderstorms, and we'll watch for them again Saturday, and then the risk eases as we head into Sunday, but a slight risk through central BC. So not widespread precip, just a slight concern for a lightning strike with these hot and dry conditions. Look at that forecast though, 32 in through Kelowna tomorrow, but that is before we get into the significant heat that really starts for Metro Vancouver on Sunday. It's next week that we'll notice those temperatures at YVR hitting the high 20s and inland 30s. So Leanne, I imagine this will be one of our big stories next week. You've got a couple days though to come up with that plan. Think about who you want to check in, where your cooling centers are.
Yes, no kidding. I might have to just sleep here at the CBC where there's lots of air conditioning to go around.
Good call. Good call. Or I'll see you at Laughing Bean for a nice coffee.
You know what? That's a plan. I love it. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Tallgrass prairie is making a comeback in southern Manitoba. CBC's Emily Brass has that story from Winnipeg about what this means for homeowners and farmers.
So this is swamp milkweed. So there are 7 different species of milkweed that are native in Manitoba.
Kelly Leask wishes more yards looked like this. Her nursery grows the same native plants that covered southern Manitoba in the past and says they could solve some of the problems of today and into the future.
The last couple of years we've had really extreme droughts. And it was very interesting to see, like, this planting behind me was green for the summer last year and the lawn was very dead and brown.
She says native plants also cut down on fossil fuel emissions. Once established, they don't need to be watered, fertilized, or mowed. The city of Winnipeg mows the equivalent of 3,000 football fields. It's looking at low-cost alternatives to turf grass for boulevards and parks. A 6-month pilot project is considering low-maintenance plants like prairie grass and clover.
So it's a beautiful mosaic that you find that the communities will really enjoy at that time.
Glenn Coblin works with developers to install naturalized storm retention ponds. City law requires these ponds in new subdivisions to reduce flooding.
This is green needlegrass.
Coblin says the roots of native grasses sink deep into the soil, holding moisture and preventing erosion. He's glad the city is testing out clover, but as a non-native invasive species, it might not stand up to tallgrass prairie.
They've been on the ground here for thousands of years in the northern Great Plains. But you look at clovers, are they going to persist and live as long as these other long-lived perennial grasses and plants? So I'm not sure an introduced species is going to live as long as and do as well in our climate.
Least also hopes the city tries out native plants, which she calls better pollinators than clover.
How cool would it be for people to know when they arrive driving or flying into Winnipeg to know that you're in a prairie city because you can see the bits of the prairie that have been embraced by the city.
For backyard gardeners, she says, don't rip out your lawn right away. Start out slow in a little corner and learn as you grow. Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Save your seat. The celebration of light is back to brighten the skies over English Bay. We will take you aboard the boat that sets the night on fire. That's coming up.
Preparations are underway for the papal visit to Maskwacis next week. Pope Francis is expected to deliver an apology for the Catholic Church's role in residential schools.
Because we know that this is where, the residential school...
For Lucy Johnson, whose parents both attended residential schools, the visit is a source of frustration.
Deep down, I'm mad on what happened with my father. I would love to have my father be part of it, but we lost him to the addictions that happened because of what happened to him in residential school. And I will never bring my father back.
Johnson's mother, however, went on to become an influential educator and even has a school named after her.
She thrived by some of the abuses that she went through by going to school, and that was her way of saying residential school is not going to kill me.
Johnson herself has been a court worker around Maskwacis for 25 years. She says she still sees the intergenerational effects of residential schools, but hasn't yet seen any perpetrators face justice.
Where's the accountability? It just can't be shoved under the corner and say sorry. Somebody needs to be held responsible.
Others in the community, however, see the papal visit as a chance to begin healing.
I'm hoping and I'm praying that it's a step forward to healing for our people. Even and I don't want to say anything to hurt those that who are finding it difficult to forgive. But I also pray that they too have an open heart and try to forgive and begin the healing process.
I hope people understand that we're all in this, that it's okay to feel the way you're feeling.
Littlechild hopes the apology will also help change Canadian attitudes towards Indigenous peoples, a shift needed to fulfill the peace and intent of treaty.
What do you do next? That's what matters.
Stephen Cook, CBC News, Maskwacis.
Well, bubble tea fans from across the Lower Mainland are bouncing down to Burnaby for the largest boba festival in Canada. The Vancouver Bubble Tea Festival is happening today and tomorrow until 5 p.m. at Swangard Stadium in Burnaby Central Park. And joining me now is the organizer of the event, Lien Yeung. So, Eric, how much work was it going into this festival? Because I know you're expecting about 20,000 people over the 2 days.
That's right. So I'm very glad that the turnout comes really well, especially the weather, because this morning it was kind of like cloudy.
And how much work was it to actually put this whole festival together? How long have you been planning it? How many people are involved?
So I've been doing this for the past couple of years. So originally we were going to host it back in 2020, but due to the pandemic, so it has been postponed until this year. So for the past couple of years, we have 40 directors working on this project.
Wow, okay. And so tell me, why did you want to organize a bubble tea festival?
Why? The most important reason is because I love bubble tea, and I know there are tons of bubble teas in the cities already. But I would like just to get everyone together in the hot summer, try something cold drink, and then we will make something fun. And especially after the pandemic, I think it's very important for everyone to be relaxed a little bit.
So what is it like now, after all of the planning that you put into it, to see everybody all gathered together at Swangard to celebrate over bubble tea?
I'm very happy and very grateful to what my team has been doing for me for the past couple of years. And it's extremely hard due to many reasons, even though for the restrictions, it's kind of hard because we have food cooking on site. So by physical house, the requirement is kind of hard. So we will try to make sure everything is okay, so everyone can enjoy the weather, enjoy the bubble tea.
Okay,
and the street food as well.
Okay, so Eric, you have to tell me, what is your favorite bubble tea flavor? What do you want people to try when they come there?
I like taro, fresh taro bubble tea.
And what's the most unique flavor that you have?
That you have to try.
And what's the most unique flavor that you have at the festival this year?
Right now, I think it's the passion fruits. So if you like passion fruits, it's very good for the summer. So it will certainly cool you down, and the sweetness is just perfect.
Okay, and what do you say to people who are not convinced about bubble tea yet? What do you hope that they'll take away from your festival?
So I think you should come to the Bubble Tea Festival. Just give it a try. You can try it without the pearls first. And if you like it, you can try 18 different toppings as well, such as coconut or grass jelly. That's also awesome too.
Wow, okay, 18 different flavors. Lots to try this weekend. Good luck with the festival and enjoy. I have Lien Yeung with me. He's the organizer of the Vancouver Bubble Tea Festival.
Thank you very much.
If bubble tea isn't enough, Vancouver's summer season is about to kick off in another big way this weekend with the celebration of light. Thousands of people will be flocking to Vancouver's West End. Check out the preparations already underway.
So I'm surrounded by what we call mortars or guns, and they're of varying sizes. We bury them a certain depth into the sand to prevent them from reacting with each other should something unforeseen happen, or even just the standard concussion of when they launch.
We got a few little treats in store. We will be seeing the return of Pete McLeod, the Red Bull stunt pilot, will be performing each of the 3 event nights at 7:40 p.m. over the skies of English Bay.
This will be the first major event, or the biggest event that Vancouver has hosted since the start of the pandemic.
And we're also going to see the iconic Canadian Snowbirds demonstration team, and they're going to be performing on the Wednesday night, which is also the night that Team Canada will be lighting up the skies.
We're anticipating tens of thousands of people coming downtown into the West End, onto the streets, the beaches, and the parks.
Really the easiest way to get down to the events is to hop on transit, walk, or cycle.
We will be deploying extra rangers and working closely with our colleagues in VPD to ensure that everyone feels safe and welcome during the event.
TransLink is increasing service for the events. For SkyTrain, we will be operating on peak service, which means trains will come every 2 to 3 minutes. There will be extra sailings for the C-Bus, as well as extra bus service to meet demand.
On the event night, we've got not only extra traditional ambulances staff, we have our bike squad units are out, and also we have a UTV ambulance which is going to be out, so these units can respond way easier through crowded situations to get to people if they need any assistance.
I also want to remind everyone that our beaches are a smoke-free venue, as they are alcohol prohibited.
All right, some good reminders there. Lots happening this weekend. Bubble tea, fireworks, it's all happening. All right, it's going to be great weather too. So that's it for us. Have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us on CBC News at 6. And always check us out on CBC Gem if you aren't already using and watching us on the app. Have a good one.